Happy International Women's Day. Today is the day for all the women to come together and remember such great women leading the revolution for equality in women, to commemorate and celebrate their lives and how far women have come in their rights to vote and be treated equal towards men. Women were handcuffing themselves to fences and gates and refusing to do the jobs that men had put out for them. This led to some brutality back towards them, especially in the UK, where if they were on hunger strike they were force-fed food. Their handcuffs were broken from wherever they were making their stand for not being moved, and objected to brutality. And of course, when the First and Second World War came out, after they had won the right to vote, through the men being away at war and not at home being able to work, women were able to help lead the resistance against the Germans in the First and Second World War by staying behind and helping and working in the factories and in the army with codes and sending messages, secretarial work, and a lot of the work that helped keep the army going for the last few hundred years, where it's primarily taken off with women picketing and leading the revolution to be a part of equal rights with men so that they can vote and go to work in the 1800s. From there we went on to the 70s, where women got rid of the tools of objectification such as bras and garments that sexualized them. But throughout history there have been many women that have gone on to change the course of history, such as, and this year has been seen as the year of the female billionaire, which includes such people as Elizabeth I, one of the greatest rulers of England during a time of great economic and social change. She saw England cemented as a Protestant country during her reign. She witnessed the defeat of the Spanish Armada, leaving Britain to later become one of the world's dominant superpowers. Catherine the Great, one of the greatest political leaders of the 18th century. Catherine the Great was said to have played an important role in improving the lot of Russian serfs. She placed great emphasis on the arts and helped cement Russia as one of the dominant countries in Europe. Mary Wollstonecraft, born 1759 to 1797. Mary Wollstonecraft wrote the most significant book in the early feminist movements. Her tract, A Vindication of the Rights of Women, laid down a clear moral and practical basis for extending human and political rights to women, a true pioneer in the struggle for female suffrage. Margaret Fuller, 1810 to 1850. She was an American woman rights advocate. Her book Women in the 19th Century, written in 1845, was influential in changing perceptions about men and women and was one of the most important early feminist books. She argued for equality and women being more self-dependent and less dependent on men. Harriet Beecher Stowe, 1811 to 1896. Harriet Beecher Stowe was a lifelong anti-slavery campaigner. Her novel Uncle Tom's Cabin was a bestseller and helped to popularize the anti-slavery campaign. Abraham Lincoln would later remark her books were a major factor behind the American Civil War. Elizabeth Cady Stanton, born 1815 to 1902. Elizabeth Stanton was a social activist and leading figure in the early women's rights movement. She was a key figure in helping create the early women's suffrage movement in the US. She was the principal author of Declaration of Sentiments in 1848. Susan B. Anthony, 1820 to 1906. Susan Anthony campaigned against slavery and for the promotion of women's and workers' rights. She began campaigning within the temperance movement, and this convinced her of the necessity for women to have the vote. She toured the US giving countless speeches on the subjects of human rights. Emmeline Pankhurst, 1858 to 1928, a British suffragette. Emily Pankhurst dedicated her life to the promotion of women's rights. She explored all avenues of protest, including violence, public demonstrations and hunger strikes. She died in 1928, 3 weeks before a law giving all women over 21 the right to vote. Mary Curie, 1867 to 1934. Mary Curie was the first woman to receive the Nobel Prize and the first person to win it for 2 separate categories. Her first award was for research into radioactivity physics in 1903. Her second Nobel Prize was for chemistry in 1911. A few years later, she also helped develop the first X-ray machine. Emily Murphy, 1868 to 1933. Emily Murphy was the first woman magistrate in the British Empire. In 1927, she joined forces with 4 other Canadian women who sought to challenge an old Canadian law that said women should not be counted as persons. Coco Chanel, 1883 to 1971. One of the most innovative fashion designers, Coco Chanel was instrumental in defining feminine style and dress during the 20th century. Her ideas were revolutionary. In particular, she often took traditional male clothes and redesigned them for the benefit of women. Mother Teresa, 1910 to 1997. Devoting her life to the cause of the poor and dispossessed, Mother Teresa became a global icon for selfless service to others. Through her missionary of charities organizations, she personally cared for thousands of sick and dying people in Calcutta. She was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1979. And those are just a few of the women that changed history and the face of women as they are perceived by men and equality rights towards them. And since then, women have been on the uprise in many industries and factors and governments and politics throughout the last 100 years. And this year has been seen as the year of the female billionaire. Miuccia Prada with $11.1 billion. L'Oreal Grande Dame Liliane Bettencourt with $34.5 billion, Tory Burch with $1 billion, Ariane Lauder with $1.1 billion, Jane Lauder with $1.15 billion, Sandra Ottinger Mira, the daughter of Zara boss Amanika Ottinger, who is the 3rd richest person in the world with $6.1 billion, Oprah Winfrey with $2.9 billion, and Facebook CEO Sheryl Sandberg with $1.5 billion. Giorgio Armani, $9.9 billion. Michelle Kors with $1 billion. Throughout the 100 years that women have been fighting to be treated as equals towards men and for their rights to vote, we have gone from women being in the kitchen and not being able to vote or work in the 1800s to women being some of the richest people in the world, holding the most amount of power and being able to lead companies and rule countries. Here's to all of you.